another Ableton tutorial. Lovely to have you here. Big shout out YouTube gang, big shout out Patreon gang. The support, the engagement really makes a difference, so thank you so much for that. Right, what are we looking at today? Well, you read the title of this video, you can hear what's going on in the background, looking at some hyper glitch stuff. How do we go about making hyper glitch sounds like the sort of stuff you can hear in the background? This is another one in the series unpacking ideas from my album, Non-Determinative Outcomes. This is a track called Hypersensory Input Process, and Patreon members will be able to download this entire set, including all of the sounds that you're going to hear, including all of the presets on this rack, to make in your own music making. It's part of my idea with this album, is to make things available so you can engage not only as a listener, but also as a maker. You can take my tools and make what you want with it. Release it. That's super awesome. It's lovely to see that beginning to happen. So, as I mentioned, this is a track called Hypersensory Input Process from my album. Let's take a quick listen to how that looks and sounds on the album version. So there you go. That's where I got to with this track in the end. But this is the sketch. This is how the track started, and I'm going to break down what's happening here, show you how to make it yourself, and yeah, let's see where we get to. I'm just going to press stop on these. I'm going to mute them for now. And so I have 4 audio samples in here from 4 different bits of just sort of sound designy sessions. Got a thing that's sort of some wampity bassy stuff made on the modular synth. Got some stuff that's kind of a lot of noisy stuff. Looks like that. Also on the modular. Got some stuff that's just a lot of nice clicks. I really like these kind of clicks. And of course, they sound great in this kind of music. So there's a whole bunch of those clicks also from the modular. And here I have just me messing around on a kalimba. Just recorded some stuff, just plinking and plonking around. So we're going to start with that. First thing I'm going to do is bring in an instrument. I'm going to bring in a simpler. Simpler is in here. Going to drag and drop that into here. Going to bring up the gain a bit, and I'm going to go to slice mode. And it's already sliced by transient. It's done quite a good job already. Maybe I'm just going to actually not use that first sample and just sort of come in here. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Now, I'm going to change a couple of other things here. I'm going to change this to gate, meaning that the note is going to be held down for as long as a MIDI note is being played. And on this, I'm going to leave it on mono for this kalimba sound. Now, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to program in some 16th notes. I'm going to program it in to just sort of play through the sample. It's going to be something like that, and it's going to be something like that, and it's going to be something like that, and it's going to be something like that. By the way, I'm at 5/4 today. Why not? It's a Sunday, and 150 BPM if you're wanting to follow along exactly. I'm now going to make that 2 bars long, and I'm going to duplicate all of that. Duplicate and going to make it there. So now when I press play on this, we can hear it just playing through the sample. Going to give it a tiny bit more fade in and fade out on that. That's quite nice already. Super nice. Okay, I'm also going to bring in a limiter at the end of this already because I think that's going to be handy for later on. Right, just going to press stop on that for now. I'm going to turn that into an instrument rack. So I'm going to select it and press Command G. Let's turn it into an instrument rack, grouping it. I'm going to open up the chain settings here, and I'm going to drag some of these other samples in. I'm going to drag in this bass sample, this modular sample. I'm going to put that at the top, actually. Somehow having the bass up the top makes sense to me, even though the bass is the bottom end. I don't know. I'm going to name that bass. I'm going to name this melodic. So now I'm going to turn off the melodic one. Now we've just got the bass one soloed. And we can hear it doing what it normally does when you drop a sample into a sampler. That's fun. That's not what we want to do today. We're going to, again, put this on slice mode. We're going to change this to gate. I'm going to bring down the sensitivity a little bit so we go through the sample a little bit more. I'm actually going to bring that over here. So we start... and I'm going to switch this to through mode. Now what that means is that it will continue playing through the sample as long as a MIDI note is being held down. And what I'm actually going to do already is I'm going to bring in a MIDI effect note length, and I'm going to put that here. I'm going to turn on latch. And what latch does is it means it holds down the previous note until a new note is triggered. So now I can do things like come in here on the MIDI, and for instance I can mute bits. I'm just pressing 0 to mute notes. And maybe let's do that for a couple of these other ones. Maybe that one's fun. And maybe these ones as well. And maybe... Yeah. So we can now hear every now and then a long note is being held. I'm actually going to randomize the bass notes that are being played a little bit. I'm going to bring the choices just down to sort of 3. So this means it's going to maybe 50% of the time it's going to jump ahead a sample. So it's going to be mostly the same, but sometimes it's going to be a little bit different. That's kind of nice. I'm also going to come in here and I'm actually going to bring in another note length. Yeah. Yeah, so I can now also control how long these held notes are being as well. Actually, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to take that out for now. Maybe I'll bring that back in. Now, let's see what's happening over on... So now with this sample, we're getting it to occasionally stop when it's holding those long notes. So what I'm actually going to do is bring an arpeggiator in. I'm going to set this to be on 16th notes and gate at 100. So now those notes that were sort of doing long held notes in the bass are doing you can hear, well, they're doing the arpeggiator. They're repeating those individual notes, which is sort of also giving it a kind of nice glitchy kind of a sound. Right, let's turn that off. Let's bring in the noisy stuff. Here we go, noisy stuff. Again, we're going to slice. We're going to go to gate mode. Again, I'm going to choose through mode on this, and we're going to reduce the sensitivity a bit so we get a bit more of a spread through. And this kind of stuff in here is nice. That's doing weird stuff. That sounds like some noise. I'm now going to bring in the clicks. Same thing. Oh, that sounds fun. Let's start you in here somewhere. Let's slice by transient. Let's actually give you a bit more gain as well. And again, I think like the melodic one with this, I want it to sort of repeat the click when it has one of those long held notes. So I'm going to bring in the arpeggiator again. And I'm going to set that to be 16th notes. Yeah, this is nice. I'm going to actually... Nice. I'm going to do a little bit of sound designy stuff on this stuff whilst I'm here. I'm going to go to audio effects. I'm going to bring in an OTT on those clicks. Nice. With this noisy stuff, I think also an OTT is going to really help homogenize that. Maybe I'll bring the dry wet down a little bit on the OTT. This thing, I'm actually going to make this quite stereo. I'm going to use the align delay. And just... So that's now spreading the sound a bit. And I'm actually going to No, for now I'm going to leave that like that, and the bass. You know what? I'm also going to bring in an OTT on this. I've called it bass, but it's not really doing the bass sound. The bass is going to come from the drums, so we can use OTT to really squash it a bit. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. Right, so now how do we glitchify it? How do we make it choose between all of these things? Well, we're going to do that using a chain selector in here. I'm going to make any one of them go all the way, select them all, right-click and distribute ranges equally. So now I can turn them all back on. So I can now choose where the MIDI signals are being sent. And I'm quite happy with sort of all of these sounds for now. So I'm going to... Well, you can hear where the glitch is coming from as we move this around. So I'm going to right-click on this and map to macro 1. That's now my sound selector. And I think you can see where we're going with this. We're going to bring in an expression control. Going to set that to random. We're going to set it to bipolar. We're going to map that to the chain selector, and we're going to put that in the middle. We're going to turn the random here up to 100%. Nice. How does this sound with the drums? It's out of key with the bass on the kick drum. I'm not going to worry about that so much for now. We've got this rack happening. This is super nice. Right, let's put some macros in so we can control stuff a bit more. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to group it. I'm going to open up the macros here. I'm actually going to bring another note length in here now so I can, you know, sometimes make it super percussive. Yeah, that's nice. Let's open up all of these macros. I'm gonna put that on macro 8. It feels like a macro 80 kind of a thing. I think it's going to be nice to be able to control the cutoff. The cutoff frequency of the bass. So I'm actually going to do that after the OTT. So I'm going to use an auto filter for that. I'm going to map that to, well, for now, let's map that to macro 9. Let's open up all of these so we can see what it is. Let's again map that to macro 9 over there. Nice. Okay, now I'm going to... Oh, I think an individual volume for each of these is going to be nice. I could, of course, use these, map these to macros, but I'm actually going to do it after all of the stuff in here for each of them. So I'm going to bring in a utility for that. Utility, I'm going to... did I already use... Yeah, let's map that to now 13. Bass volume, melodic. Let's close some of this up. Again, utility in here. Map to macro 14. This guy, the super noisy stuff. Macro 15. And then the clicks. Utility in here. Okay, now I'm going to map those. I'm actually going to put those on 1, 2, 3, and 4 over there. First of all, I'm going to constrain the ranges on here. So let's open up the mapping here. We don't want that to go to 35. We don't want to explode the world. Let's make those all go to 0. We can turn them all back up now. I'm going to map those to 1, 2, 3, and 4. Macro 1. Map to macro 2. Did I map you? No. Map to macro 1. Map to macro 3. Map to macro 4. Now, one thing we might want to do in order to glue all of this together is add some compressors and stuff in at the end of the whole chain, so all of the sounds kind of feel together. So I'm going to use Ableton's glue compressor, which is fantastic for this. Bring the threshold down a bit and give it a bit of makeup gain. And I'm actually also going to use a drum bus in here. I'm going to just bring the dry wet down a little bit, bring the output down a little bit, because these... Yeah, this is then super nice to sort of make everything feel like it's coming from the same place, even though there's such different sounds. I'm actually going to map the drive to macro 5 and map the crunch to macro 6. That's super nice. Okay. Let's add a reverb onto the melodic thing, because I think that's going to be nice to add a little bit of context. So I'm going to double click, open up the melodic chain again. I'm going to do this kind of as an in-chain send. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to bring a reverb in here. I'm going to turn that up to 100%. That's already quite nice. In fact, I'm just going to do it as a dry wet because that's actually really nice. Yeah, so I'm going to right click and I'm going to want to be able to control that. So let's map that to, and then also the dry wet here. Map to macro 3. So this is... And let's map those over here. Let's map those to... I think maybe I want to do one more thing on the bass. So let's map these to macro... Oh no, I want to do 2 more things on the bass. So let's map these to macro 13 and 14. Yeah, 13 and 14. So the bass, I also want to be able to control the pitch on that quite easily without having to dive and find the bass sample. So I'm going to right click on the transpose and I'm going to map that to macro 4. Let's rename that. And then I need to map that to the macros over here. So let's map that to macro 10. Yeah, so I can now pitch the bass up and down. That's nice. Got the low pass filter happening there. One thing, the reason I'm leaving macro 11 free is in a second I'm going to jump over and show sort of all of the programming I did on my main rack. Actually, I think I'm going to leave this here. This is how I built the rack. You can see how it's all coming together. You don't need to watch me sort of do programming all of these individual macros and everything. I'm going to bring the drums back in. It's sounding kind of cool. I really like how that's kind of really reverby, actually. So I'm going to turn that off for now. And I'm gonna take a quick look at the final version of the rack that I built, which you can download. You can also access this as a one-time post if you're not a Patreon member. Link in the description below. So I'm going to come back to this rack. I'm going to turn it on and press play on this. So as you can hear, I've done a bit of processing and I've made all of these things available as macros. One of them is the bass select. So if I just turn all the other levels down here. So there's a few different bass samples that you can use. Which is super nice to be able to switch through them. And likewise in the melodic samples. The clicks and the noise are just single samples. And then with the pitch, you can control the pitch of the bass and the pitch of the melody as well. Obviously, I've got these drive functions in. Let's bring that noise level down a little bit. Nice. So yeah, there you go. That's how I made this patch. I hope you enjoy exploring hyperglitch stuff yourself. Give me a shout out in the comments if there's something else you'd like for me to explore. If you're enjoying these tutorials from the stuff from my album, lovely to have you here. See you next time.